Gentlemen, start your engines.
Like I mentioned in our last video, which was on the unfortunate landscape of the diecast industry in 2022, my passion for NASCAR is unmatched. I would do absolutely anything to help it grow, and it just gets me fired up when I feel like there are easy fixes to make things happen. Of course, I know only so much about contracts and all that legal stuff, but to me, there's absolutely no reason that NASCAR's starting lineup should look the way that they do in 2022. This is not a hit piece on TV coverage or anything like that, but a small and simple tweak to the broadcast that I feel could make a massive impact. As we all know, the 80s and mostly 90s, we had starting lineups that were informative as a back of a baseball card. They had the driver's name, picture, and car. Plenty of times we were even blessed with the driver's hometown and a fact or stat about the driver. I don't even know where to start with this one. This is the one thing that literally should have never ever been touched. Of course, every network had their own variation of this, but all in all, they set the tone and informed the viewer of what was going on and what was going to happen. The thing is that during those days, drivers basically drove one car. They had one recognizable paint scheme, and that was it. It was easy to see who was in what, and even a fan tuning in for the first time could follow what was going on in the race. I've always found it funny and kind of backwards that during the era we are in, one that has drivers running multiple schemes and sponsors this season, that we boxed this idea up and threw it in the trash. No matter how passionate of a fan you are, every single week there is at the very least a handful of different schemes in the show from the previous race, most likely leaving you a little puzzled at some point wondering who is driving what scheme. Identity of the drivers and cars in the race should always be the number one goal of setting the tone for the event. In my opinion, showing the cars and the driver's name is an absolute must. It provides viewers, both old and new, the ability to understand what is going on. Beyond that, every single one of these guys deserves a moment in the spotlight. They are heroes going to battle for us, for our entertainment, and they deserve, at the very, very least, a few seconds on TV. From there, everything else is extra, but to me, I really don't understand why the extra isn't added. We are in a time period where sponsors matter more than anything. They bring dollars to NASCAR and put drivers and teams on the track. Without it, we won't even know who you probably even are. Why would we shy away from the idea that gives every single car exposure at least once a race? I know if I was the owner of a company, I would be more likely to sponsor a car knowing that I would at least have some sort of TV time, even if it was just for a few seconds. This also adds on to my next reason why this is an important part of the broadcast: gaining new fans. Imagine you have a new fan tuning in for the first time in maybe the 1996 Daytona 500. You hear Ken Squier introducing the starting grid for the Great American Race. You have no favorite drivers, but you're intrigued as the starting grid pops up on the screen and you're trying to find one. You might pick Terry Labonte because you love cornflakes, or John Andretti because you work at Kmart. Maybe you are drawn to Jimmy Spencer because Ken told you he's from Pennsylvania, or maybe, just maybe, the nickname Mr. Excitement is something that excites you about him. You might think that Dave Marcus reminds you of your dad or grandpa, or that Loy Allen looks like your neighbor up the street that you love. You might even just pick a driver because you're hungry. No matter the reason, the starting grids were literally dripping with information. They showed you the driver's name, their picture, their hometown, their sponsor number, the color of their car, and even a fact or two about them was told. All of this for 43 drivers took normally under 2.5 minutes. I'll never understand why we can't sacrifice time for this in 2022, especially with so much pre race coverage. To me, this should absolutely be an integral part of the broadcast because it helps the sport grow. That should always, always, always be the number one goal, and I'll never personally understand why we choose to not latch onto something so natural and easy when it is staring right at us, especially knowing how successful of a tool it was in the past that so many of us have fond memories of to this day. Now, of course, I'm no Bob Jenkins or Ken Squire, Alan Bestwick, or Rick Allen, so forgive me for the lack of talent, but just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine that this is something life would look like in 2022. Starting on the pole from Dawsonville, Georgia, 2020 Cup Series champion Chase Elliott, and on the outside of the front row, Bakersfield, California's Kevin Harvick. In row 2, we have defending race winner Denny Hamlin of Chesterfield, Virginia, and in fourth, the car owned by Hamlin and Michael Jordan, Alabama's Bubba Wallace, who is celebrating his 29th birthday today. We have some brotherly love in the next row, with Las Vegas, Nevada's Kyle and Kurt Busch bringing up the third row, as Kyle edged out his older brother in qualifying for a third straight week. Row 4 has New Jersey's Martin Truex Jr. sporting a teal Bass Pro Shops car in honor of his girlfriend Sherry, who is battling ovarian cancer. Last week's race winner Kyle Larson of Elk Grove, California will start alongside Truex. Larson will have to go to the back of the field after changing an engine this morning. Imagine the entire race field introduced just like that. I mean, with a better voice than me. But every single race, every single week, just how it used to be. To me, it's perfect and just how it should still be.